Good morning, world. Thank you for listening. If you are previously watching me, if not, welcome. Let me share my life with you for an hour. I would like to talk about Chad Robichaux. Robichaux is spelt Robicaux. He was punished by Google for using the word Christian in an ad. His YouTube channel and his group helps PTSD veterans, that's post-traumatic stress disorder veterans. Google told him that he couldn't use the word Christian because they weren't allowing anybody to target specific religious groups, but when he changed his ad to Muslim, he was allowed to use his ad. Obviously, Chad was disgusted with this, as anybody who believes in freedom of speech should be. I'm not too sure what his current situation is, whether he got his conflict resolved with Google. I think it's disgusting that somebody who fights for their country should be mistreated in this way. If you put your life on the line and put yourself in a situation where you could be traumatized, injured, or killed, where you might face nightmares or be scared every time you hear the sound of a gunshot, every time you hear helicopters whirling around in the air, it can fill you with despair, it can fill you with terror, making you think that someone's out to get you. It's too easy to be paranoid when you're a soldier, when you spent your life on the front lines. It's fairly difficult to deal with. It's fairly difficult to recover from. There are soldiers out there with all different religious backgrounds. All of them are connected through their experience. They can all share the common thread of what it's like to be out there fighting for your life, to be enduring cold nights, to always be watching your back, always wondering whether you are going to be attacked with a gun or a knife. All of us face danger every day, but soldiers choose to go into situations where their lives are placed under threat. Some of them are conscripted, some of them don't get a choice about whether or not they go into battle. Their government makes them do it for a certain period of time. That's how it used to be all over the world before pacifists had enough of it. They rose up against it and made it possible for people to choose whether or not they wanted to be roped into the army. Muhammad Ali, he protested against being drafted into the military. It's difficult when you're on the front line. It's difficult to forgive yourself or to believe that God can forgive you when you had to kill people, when you had to face battles, when you looked the enemy in the eye, when you had to blow the ring off his finger, when you're in a sweaty tank that is blocked off on all sides so you can't see what you're doing, you can't see what you're shooting at. You've got to trust that your machine is telling you the truth, not lies. It's possibly easy to kill your fellow troops or allies in friendly fire these days. Warfare is done with drones as well as human soldiers. There were women who were placed on the front lines. Don't get upset when I say this, but some women don't have the strength of men, so the men in the unit have to work harder to compensate for their comparative weakness. They have to work extra hard because of laws that ensure that equality is present within their ranks. This stinks to high heaven, just like the fact that funds are used to pay for troops to use Viagra. They don't need that kind of stimulant. It's not like beef jerky. It's not an essential part of their diet. It's not like the food that is packed in their canvas bag. What they need to keep themselves from falling apart at the seams. What they need to give them strength and energy, unlike chaplains, which is something we all need, whether or not we like to admit it. All of us need mentors. All of us need God's guidance. He is the only one who can help us out, the only one who can help us to take a different route than the one we've taken in the past. There are still veterans who were being denied the money that's due them. I think this is disgusting to see troops being exploited, those who have given their lives for their country, yet they're not treated with the correct amount of respect. They're treated like insects. They are too easily discarded. When the Vietnam War occurred, there were troops who were treated with contempt when they went home. There were troops in this country who were prevented from receiving supplies of food and other things by people associated with the Labour Party. I've got to be a smarty, got to use my gifts for your glory. Thank you, Lord, for your life, bringing redemption to my story. All of us are called to be your soldiers. All of us are called to be your children. All of us are called to be your bride, to be adopted as your offspring. Not all of us know that you have hidden eternity in our hearts. It's possible for all of us to make contact with you. You gave us a conscience so we can tell the difference between right and wrong. All of us are engaged in war, whether we like to admit it or not. We are involved in a spiritual battle. Our battle shouldn't be against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities, demonic forces. We've got to be on the right team, choose the right angel. Allow me to fight with. 2/3 of the angels chose to call Jesus Christ their captain and commander. 1/3 chose to rebel. They chose to have sex with women, and that's how giants were formed. Those children were called Elohim. That's one of the names of God, as well as Adonai. Jehovah Sidkenu, you were faithful and true. You were watching over all of those soldiers out there. You are keeping them from being harmed. You are keeping them from harming each other. You are able to enable them to resolve conflict amicably. I wish we lived in a world where there was no war, but it's a necessity, some say, because all this tit for tat goes on. People follow the rule of an eye for an eye and a cheek for a cheek, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But Jesus Christ said to turn the other cheek. It's too easy to get pulled into conflict when your allies are involved in conflict. Some say we probably shouldn't have allies in the first place, cause if we didn't have allies we wouldn't get roped into their battles. Why do we have foreign troops living in this land? Why do we have alliances with other countries? Why can't we just defend ourselves? Why do we get roped into other people's battles? It makes no sense to me. You can't say that people wouldn't want to be your allies. They wouldn't want to be linked to us economically. They wouldn't want to buy our products if we didn't jump when they say jump. If we didn't jump in the fire of battle with them, if we didn't get involved when they get involved in conflict. There are some of our allies who we don't get involved with. There are some conflicts we choose to let slide. We choose to let some people fight their own battles. What's up with that? Why are we picky and choosy as governments? Why are our governments picky and choosy when it comes to fighting battles? We can't afford to fight every single battle in the world, every single battle under the sun. We've got to choose wisely which ones we get involved with. Obviously, there are some where it seems like we can't avoid getting roped in. When we were part of the empire, before it became the Commonwealth, when we were part of the British Empire as a country, obviously we got roped into that conflict. We had no choice because we were subjects of the Queen or King. We were subjects of the King, so we had to do what he said. We fought for the sake of King and country in one sense. That's what we do as Christians. We fight for the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. We fight for that heavenly country. We're citizens of heaven. We are not citizens of this world. We are aliens to this world. We are lights in the darkness. We are different to this world. We are called to be different to this world. We are called to imitate Jesus, to follow in his footsteps everywhere he goes. That's where we should go also. He is the one who takes care of our torsos. He is the one who takes care of mortals. He is always looking up for us, always looking after us everywhere we go. We can have no success if it's not for him. Why do people hate on believers? You know the war we are fighting these days. We are fighting for our rights to be heard, fighting for our rights to preserve the love that we have for Christ. We got to strengthen what remains. We got to defend our rights to believe what we want. Why do some people think that some people have the right? Why do some people think that people have the right to believe whatever they want to believe, unless you want to believe in the Son of God, unless you want to believe in the only one who can save you, the only hope that is present in this world? Why would they turn their backs on him? Why would they deny and suppress those who want to get to know him? Why would they call it abuse? I want to cut loose from that notion. You are the reason I cry in ocean. All these souls that to go into hell in a handbasket. That's why we go to war. That's why we're fighting for. Yeah, we're fighting for you, Lord. Fighting for the preservation of religion, not just the preservation of democracy. You see, democracy can be good or bad, because if you go by majority rules, then you can say that it's so right to kill the Jews because the majority of people in Germany thought it was a good idea, but that isn't true, because killing people and wiping them out isn't right. Genocide is wrong, everybody knows that, so why do we carry on believing the lies of the enemy? Why do we continue down the path of wickedness? Why do we not pay our dues to Jehovah, praise him till our lives are over? Yeah, I know it's wrong to kill Arabs too, don't get it twisted. I'm not just standing up for Jews, I know that God is the one who brings peace. Yeah, I love him, his wonders never cease. It was funny to me to see a Lebanese judge choose to punish two youths who were mocking Mary by forcing them to recite passages from the Quran which say good things about Mary. It's scary to me how people choose to live in hostility. I wouldn't necessarily recommend what the Lebanese do to the rest of the world. It is interesting though that they have Muslims and Christians in charge of their country in positions of authority. It's funny how they're able to live in harmony. Is that an example to the rest of the world? We cannot possibly accommodate for every single religion. We cannot possibly make everybody happy. It's impossible to be equal when it comes to morality, when it comes to spiritual views, when it comes to truth. Some people lay down their lives so we can have the freedom to believe whatever we want, even so we can have the freedom to mock our religion, to mock others' religion, to mock the way we were raised if we choose to go that way. There are some countries where you don't get that freedom, where you get locked away in jail, where your job gets threatened, where your life gets threatened, where you can't go to hospital, you can't get a hotel to stay in, where you're constantly running for your life, where you're disowned by your family, where you feel like giving your body up and selling it on the streets because there's no way to make bread. There's no one who will give you employment because they say you're the wrong religion. If you choose to follow Jesus Christ, that's the battle some people face. And they are living in a land that is being invaded by foreigners, and yet they still have to deal with the situation that those foreigners are the ruling authority, and there is no way that they can have their freedom respected even though they are native to the land. It's crazy how it works out like that. It's crazy how we see people getting co-opted by people who have no respect for them, by people who just want to use them and exploit them like pawns. It's crazy how we go to war for the sake of drugs. Yeah, there were wars for the sake of drugs in the past. People wanted to control the drug supply. It's crazy how my people gave drugs to the Chinese people. I wish I could turn back the clock. I wish my people didn't get Chinese people addicted to opium. I wish there was no Boxer rebellion. We can't change the past, but we can change the future. We can do better. We can acknowledge the sins of the past. It does us good to acknowledge the sins of the past, because that way we can heal. That way we can move on. We have to walk in forgiveness. Some people find it hard to forgive. It's privilege, not a right. You experience healing when you choose to give somebody the privilege of forgiveness. It's a gift that you give others as well as yourself. Some people can't see what I mean. They don't want to hear it. They want to remain in chains to bitterness and hatred. They want that anger to consume them. They love sleeping in a bed of flames. I don't want to be walking their way. I want to be walking Yahweh's way. Yeah, it's so crazy how there have been so many conflicts throughout the centuries, so many wars that are taking place all around the world we don't even know about. There is a war that goes on. Does God have to fight against the doubt inside our heart in order to heal us? I don't think he needs us to believe that it's possible for him to heal us in order to heal us. If that was possible, then if that was the case, then why is it that those who don't believe in him get healed? Why is it that Hindus get healed when they think that Jesus Christ is just another God that they can add to the shelf? See, it messes with your theology. Maybe it's just the belief alone that was enough to save them, but we don't have faith in faith alone. God took a heart of stone and turned it into a heart of flesh. He loves us even when we show him coldness and hardness. He loves us despite the hardship we face. We may let the hardship we face lie to us and convince us that he's not with us, that he will leave us and forsake us, but he promised in his word that he would never abandon us as orphans in this world. So we know even if we don't have a mother or father, he can be a mother and father to us. If we're missing a sister or brother, he can be a sister or brother to us. What can we discover if we let him open our eyes? If we no longer walk in disguise, if we just be real and authentic about the battles we face, he will never go without a trace. Yeah, it's hard to keep pace with him, and in fact it's downright impossible. There are not enough trees in the world to write down all the miracles that he did All the miracles that he's doing, all the miracles he's done, past, present, and future. There's no end to the miracles that he's doing. Every breath is a gift from him, every heartbeat is a gift from him. Yet some of us as humans take him for granted. Some of us think that we will always be breathing, we can just live however we want and get our lives right with him on our deathbed. But we can be killed when we're walking across the streets, so we can afford to make light of the opportunity to get right with him before we're left behind, before our bodies are buried 6 feet under. I plunder the past for inspiration in the present. Lord God, you're ever present. Gotta stay reverent. Your way is the only way that makes sense. Yahweh, you're the truth and the life and the way, and the only one who saves. My next topic is pedophilia. I wonder how I'm gonna tackle this topic. Well, I will start with Amazon. I was gonna just mention the situation without mentioning the name of the country, but I felt called by God to mention the name of the company. I was just going to mention the situation without mentioning the company, but I felt called by God to mention the name of the company. Amazon is currently distributing a DVD called I, Pedophile, which encourages people to have sympathy for pedophiles. I think that's vile. It's crazy that they said no to allowing Christian content to be shared. They said no to allowing conversion therapy material to be shared through their site. It's crazy how they say yes to one kind of conversion, but they say no to another kind of conversion. They say yes to grooming, but they say no to Christian information that they may call brainwashing or indoctrination. This is essential information that you need to feed your mind in order to succeed. The Bible is the best guide for this life. It's the one that determines my self-worth. It gives us basic instructions before leaving earth. There was a preacher who came to our church. He said that some judges are trying to legalize pedophilia, but there are other judges and people in the current government in charge of our country that are making it harder for pedophiles to get out on early release. Those people need therapy. Those people need loving and understanding. Those people don't need to be told that their feelings are right and good and healthy. They need to be brought to a place where they see God's face, like all of us need to be. Why are people making excuses for racists? Why are people making excuses for fascists? Why are people making excuses for neo-Nazis? That ain't a path I wish to follow. I can see the tendency in me to replicate the thinking patterns of my ancestry. I've got distant relatives that were involved in topsy-turvy nights, which meant that men dressed up as women and women dressed up as men. They didn't think of themselves as being members of the opposite sex. They didn't identify themselves as members of the opposite sex, but they chose to dress up as members of the opposite sex. Some say this has no connection to transgenders, but I beg to differ. It's funny how people do unhealthy things thinking they're being healthy. We ought to be careful what we mess with. When I face issues in my life, I'm willing to address it. There are certain relationships I have to stay away from for my own good. I have to choose to be friends instead of being something more than friends. Cause I know it's not good for me to walk that path, even though it kills me inside, even though it hurts, even though it makes me cry. I know what else Shaddai would want from me. I love it when you call me accidentally. I wish it was on purpose. You know what goes on beneath the surface. Lord God, I wanna live like a servant. You love me even though I know I don't deserve it. The form of conversion therapy that is wrong is when they use electric shocks to try and change somebody's mind and change them from homosexual to straight. That's obviously messed up. Nobody is gonna change unless they're willing to be changed. The type of conversion therapy they shouldn't be stopping is when somebody comes to somebody. When somebody goes to a counselor and they want to stop being a homosexual, they want to be a heterosexual, but they don't know how to do it on their own. My friend said she was struggling, then she went ahead and married the woman who she identifies as her wife. Can we find freedom from trouble and strife? Know what's bubbling inside my mind? If children are raised up in homosexual homes, it doesn't mean that they will be homosexuals. Jefferson Bethke is the exception to that rule. He proved through his life that a guy can be raised in a homosexual home and choose to have a heterosexual relationship. I can see how a little dude or chick would hate on the opposite sex, identify themselves as the same sex. If they have two people who identify themselves as their parents who are of the same sex, if they've got no good role models of what the opposite sex should behave like, if they've only heard hateful things about the opposite sex, why would they want to be the sex that God made them? If they happen to be the opposite sex that's being described in hateful terminology. I know pastors that have homosexuals attending the church. There's nothing wrong with this. I wouldn't put them in a position of leadership. I wouldn't even put them in a position of being in a worship band or collecting money for offerings. Some may beg to differ. Attendance is different to giving somebody a position which could give them a reason to feel good about their lifestyle. Let us flee from all that's vile. Let us do what you want from us, Jehovah. Gonna praise you till my life is over. Gotta stay vigilant and sober. Have something to show for this life of mine. You are holy, you are divine. One thing the whole entire world, or at least the majority of the world currently agrees on, is that in a situation where there's an imbalance of power, obviously it's messed up. Obviously, little children don't know about sex. They don't know what people are saying to them. They may agree to participate in activities that are nefarious, not knowing what they're doing, just thinking of the reward that they're getting. Wrestling with nightmares, feeling filthy and guilty inside, feeling responsible for the depravity that they took part in. It's too easy for hearts to become hardened. If a woman is sexually abused by an elder man when she's a little girl, it's hard for her to trust guys. If a dude is abused by an elderly woman when he's a little dude, you can see why it's hard for him to trust women. why it's hard for him to identify himself as masculine, why he struggles to express a heteronormative identity. Why do people who identify as transgender wrestle every day? I didn't walk in their shoes, so I don't know how it is for them. It seems way too complicated for them. Why would they be rejoicing about the situation? They would be weeping, I would think. It doesn't make any sense to me why they would rejoice when they are constantly wrestling with their choices, when they are constantly struggling with the right thing to wear, with the right thing to say, with the identity, with the MUA. Tell me, why are their identities MIA? Why did they wake up that way? It wasn't the way that they woke up happened over time. There was a gradual shift that took place. I remember my homosexual friend, how she told me that this lady kissed her on the cheek, then she started texting her obsessively. She didn't know how to deal with it. She only saw her as a friend. She said she never felt like this before about a member of the opposite sex. She didn't know how to deal with it. She was confused in her mind. Later on, she was making friends with a dude who identified as a chick, and he had convinced her that she was born that way, but there wasn't always the way she felt. I know she used to chat with me about wanting to be with a dude that had big muscles. I know she wasn't joking. She was telling me that she could only marry someone of the same cultural background as her. What do you do when your spirit gets stirred? What do you do with those dreams that get deferred? Lord, it's your company that we prefer. Help us not to revert back to the way that we used to be before we knew you deeply and intimately. It's too easy to get confused about your sexual identity. It's too easy to think I'm done with women of my age. I'm gonna look for someone younger. Then your appetite gets younger and younger. It's too easy to cross the line. We may say we will never fall and never slip up like others have slipped up and tripped up, but then we find ourselves walking in their shoes. I hope you never walk in the shoes of somebody who was sexually confused, who has to fight with loneliness, who has to wrestle with their identity every day. Sometimes we're fine until we make friends with folks who think they're helping us when they're actually hurting us. Not only are they hurting us, they're also harming us. We can be hurtful without being harmful. Thanks to you, Jehovah, my cup is full and running over. I want to be a protector of little kids. I want to be free from all temptation to act like a predator. I want to choose positivity over negativity. You free me from temptation. You free me from seeing myself as part of the trap. You free me from that sin slavery I once used to inhabit. You broke those manacles off me. You showed me a better way to be. You are my fortress of safety. You help me not to be faultless. I'm caught up in rapture with you. There's a program in schools that they call safe schools, but those schools that adopt the program of safe schools are unsafe schools, because they're teaching little kids how to be homosexual. Kids don't need any help learning how to be homosexual. Shouldn't they be allowed to make that discovery for themselves outside of the context of education? These people who are indoctrinating these kids should check themselves and think about what they are awakening prematurely in young ones. A young woman shouldn't be pregnant while she's still at school. She shouldn't have to deal with that kind of suffering. That often happens because dudes lack self-control. They lack patience. They should wait until they're married before they have sex. They should be a little more patient. They should stay away from drugs and alcohol. That's what causes the mind to be perverted. Alcohol doesn't cause the mind to be perverted, but if you drink it in excess, it can cause the mind to be perverted. It can cause you to lose your inhibitions, do things you wouldn't otherwise do when you're sober-minded, when you've had enough sleep, when you lack sleep, and when you're drunk you can act almost precisely the same. The devil's trying to rub us asleep. He's trying to rob us of educational facilities, primary and secondary educational facilities and universities where people are able to think freely, where different ideologies are able to freely coexist without fear of one dominating the other, without fear of someone not being heard, without fear of being just another sheep in the herd, without fear of being ignored, without fear of never having your views heard. It's absurd to the world, but just observe how much better life is when all points of view are acknowledged. There's a difference between opinion and belief. Opinion can't be substantiated by fact, unlike belief. Unlike belief in the Most High El Shaddai, who rules and reigns in my life. He is the one who made this world. The only way to heaven, it's through His blood we are saved. He is the bridge to freedom I choose to walk on. Despite the struggles I faced in the past, He helps me to find my identity in Him. To not see myself as the way I was, but only to see myself as the way that He wants me to be. See, there's a struggle. Part of me wants to go back to the old ways. Part of me wants to travel onwards with Him, onwards to freedom. There is a fear that I face. There is a lust that I face. There is a pride that I face. He has to get on my case. I'm constantly transformed by the renewing of my mind on a daily basis, presenting my body as a living sacrifice. It's not something that happens overnight. It's with me in this fight. It's enabling me to overcome the world. I sit at table with Him. He is fellowshipping with me. He is tearing down that Tower of Babel in me, causing His truth and wisdom to flower out of me. Chilling with the magpies, checking the view of all the beautiful flowers, plants and vegetables and fruit that surrounds me in my backyard. No matter how hard your life gets, you don't have to permit your regrets to cause you to regress back into the person that you used to be, because you put change in the too hard basket. It's impossible to live without regrets, but it's possible to live without continually regressing back into the people that we used to be before we knew JC, aka JESUSCHRIST, the one who saves me, the one who spilled his blood for all of humanity. It's insanity to me why people turn their back on Him, why people refuse to believe in Him. We can achieve nothing if it isn't for His intervention in our lives. I'm so grateful for His prevention of accidents. He's the source of my peace of mind. He made me human and He made me kind. I'm only capable of being kind because of His will's intervention in my life. I can't do anything good on my own. It's only through You, Lord, that I choose good over evil. You help me to make the right choices, to be guided by Your voice, to be Your voice to the voiceless, oh the oppressed, like Philando Castillo, who didn't have to produce his deal. but he still got shot because he pulled out his gun from his pocket and showed it to the cop. Even though we had the license, it was crazy how we died. It was stupid how his brains got fried. There isn't a way to justify the way that that cop treated him. He must have had his brains fried. He must have had tired eyes. He must have been committing an oversight. The judge must have been committing an oversight. It's crazy how they ignored what happened to that precious life. It's crazy how a soul was allowed to die, how a body was allowed to die. The soul lives on after the body dies. It's like a cicada. It leaves its body behind and then it flies free while its body grips to a fence. Lord, your love is so intense. I know you don't want me to be sitting on the fence. Some say using ladies for my poems every day. You're sitting on the fence, but you were with me. You know the contents of my character. You don't judge me by the color of my skin. You don't judge me by my outward appearance. You look at my heart. Some say if you look at your heart, it should scare you. Well, maybe it scares me sometimes, but it also enthralls me to know that I belong to Christ. It's not either or, it's both and. Understand, my life is always in God's hands. I want everybody who watches this video to get onto Facebook and look up Lanji Official. That's LANJI Official. My friend Zewe Lanji, that's ZEWE Lanji, needs more likes on her official page before her manager will allow her to release singles. He wants her to prove to the world that she's popular enough to gain a market for her songs. So I hope that you will hear the call. I want her to be more famous than Beyonce. I want her to put Zambia on the map. When you think of Zambian music, I want you to think of Zewe Lanji music. When you think of African music, I want you to think of Zewe Lanji music. When you think of good music, I want you to think of Zewe Lanji music. When you think of good females doing music, I want you to think of Zewe Lanji music. God, see that you're faithful and true every day. Your mercies are brand new. I'm so grateful for the fact that you spilled your blood for the sake of my redemption. There's no pretension in you. You help us to deal with the tension in this world. I know that you are King of Kings and Lord of Lords forevermore. I want to worship you in spirit and truth. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to live a life that's opposite to the way you live, Lord God. I'm willing to give my blood for the sake of the redemption of humanity, but my blood isn't pure and perfect like yours. I can never be pure and perfect enough to give my blood for the sake of the salvation of humanity, even if I lay my life down for my friends. Yeah, many people would lay down their life for their friends, but you laid your life down for strangers and enemies, those who called you strangers and enemies. It's crazy how you love us that much. I want to have that much love for the world. There's so much selfishness in me. There's not enough selflessness in me. You're with me in my struggle. You enable me to overcome the world despite my mental problems. You help me to see things from your point of view instead of the devil's point of view. See, the devil would rob me off and throw me away. The devil would stop me from sharing my gift with the world. You're giving me this gift. I want to use it to lift spirits that are depressed. I know what it's like to be depressed, to feel lonely, to feel as if I've got no friends in the world, but I know I've got friends in this world, and I know I've got friends in the next world, and you're my best friend in this world. You spilled your blood for the sake of my redemption, Lamb of God, Prince of Peace, everywhere at once, all seeing and all knowing, undefeatable, invincible. I'm convinced that you are able to help everybody in the world, even those who don't believe in you. You are able to work miracles. You are able to bring salvation through folks who don't necessarily believe in you. It's amazing how you use every single soul in creation for the sake of your glory. You are the subject of my fascination. I don't do this just out of obligation, even though I feel obligated to you. I've got an attitude of gratitude because of the fact that you were nailed in your hands and your feet. You wore a crown of thorns on your head. You were spat upon. Your robes were torn for the sake of the freedom of all humanity. So we don't have to swallow the lies. We don't have to swallow the insanity that the devil tries to push on us, trying to tell us that our genitalia doesn't determine our gender, trying to tell us that you are not the only way to heaven when you were the only way to heaven, trying to sever our connection with you. He's been doing that since the beginning of creation, since Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, walking with you in the cool of the evening. They had such sweet fellowship with you. They say you shrunk yourself down to human size and prostrated yourself on Adam in order to bring a woman out of him. They say you prostrated yourself on the clay man in order to breathe him to life. You molded him with your own hands. You pulled a woman out of him while he was sleeping. Thanks to you, I got no more reason for weeping. Thanks to you, even if I got a reason for weeping, I know that you were with me. Despite the river of tears that pour out of me, I know that. Despite the fact I'm angry, despite the fact I'm sad, despite the fact I'm fearful, despite the fact I'm tearful, I can be cheerful because I got hope for the future. Because of you, I live for me. Because of you, I live and breathe. Because of you, I got hope for the future. Because of you, I've got a love that never dies. You are inside me. There's a fire that I can't keep shut up inside this cage of bones. I wanna worship you alone. The world may think I've gone bananas, but what seems like craziness to them makes sense to you. Professing ourselves to be what we became fools. You use the foolish things of this world to shame the wise. You use the things of this world that may appear foolish to shame those who are wise in their own eyes. I can't disguise my love for you. You always take me by surprise. Sundown to sunrise, the Son of God cries out for the people he created to worship him in spirit and truth. I gotta learn to turn to you more than I turn to my friends for counseling. My friend schooled me, she stopped me in my tracks when I was starting to treat her as a substitute for you. Spending more time talking to her than I was talking to you. Choking up my victories every day, you get me through. Every day you enable me to get through without surrendering to temptation. I praise you for every decision that I make that is in line with your will. For every decision that you enable me to make that is in line with your will. If I see that it is you, God, in my will, then it helps me not to get prideful, feeling like I've arrived. You are the only reason that I can never survive. Thanks to you, I've got hope for the future. Thanks to you, I've got a love that never dies. You always take me by surprise. Sometimes I get to shake some wide awake. I wanna keep it real, I don't wanna keep it fake. I see there are snakes in tall grass, that's why I don't go wandering around in it. There was a dude who smashed his fists against a door. Who knows what he was searching for? He was the first footballer that identified as homosexual. It's such a shame that he struggled with depression, that he didn't know what to do with his life, that he wanted to throw it away rather than holding on to it. His body was covered in blood. He didn't know how to deal with the world. He didn't know how to love right. He didn't know about the agape love, that pure, perfect love that comes with no strings attached, that unconditional love, that perfect match. Maybe he didn't have the right kind of father figure in his life. Maybe he wanted to pull the trigger finger on his mother finger. Maybe he couldn't figure out who he was when he looked in the mirror, when he looked down there between his legs. It's so crazy how people get confused about their identity, how people get schooled to believe lies. We willingly receive lies. Some of us get lies forced on us. I can't disguise my love for you. You constantly take me by surprise, son. Down to sunrise, you made the sun, moon, and stars. You made the flowers and the birds. You made the hours of the day. I don't know if you exist outside of time or inside it, but it makes sense to me that you exist outside of time. Otherwise, you wouldn't be capable of being everywhere at once. It doesn't make sense to me how you'd be capable of being everywhere at once if you didn't exist outside of time. But you are God, nothing is impossible for you. So who am I to say that you don't exist within time's confines? I know your word doesn't say that. When I heard some dude say I was wrong, I just protested. I didn't know how to deal with his difference of opinion. He couldn't prove that I was wrong. He couldn't prove I was right. I couldn't prove that I was wrong. I couldn't prove that I was right. My friend thought I was being impolite cause I wore a fuzzy hairdo wig, like I was pretending to be an African. That's what she thought I was trying to be, but I was just imitating a clown. My wig was green and gold. I wasn't even pretending to be ridiculous. You know what's going on inside of me. You know what's going on inside of my soul. You are the one who restores me and makes me whole. There were many days when I wanted to be a different color skin to the one I was born in. Sometimes I wanted to be a different gender. I wanted to be a different age. I wish I was younger so I didn't have to deal with not being old enough, not being the right age to go out with a woman I love. To go out with a woman I love, I've got to see her differently. To love her with a filious kind of love instead of a different kind of affection. It's okay to love her with that agape kind of love, but I can't love her with that storge or that eros kind of love. Storge is a kind of love that is possessive. It relates to possessions and also to the feeling of ownership of people, love, things. Some say it just relates to things, but that's wrong. Philios is friendship, love. That's the kind of love that I have, the kind that I cultivate. It's easier for some women to be friends with dudes than to be something other than friends. I'm scared if I give the woman I love too many compliments, she's not gonna take me into her confidence. She's not gonna wanna be anything more than friends. She might actually wanna be strangers or enemies, wanna be a distant acquaintance, but nothing more and nothing less. I know I gotta deal with stress. Some women you can't ask for kisses when you were hanging out with them unless you've gotten to know them for a while. And even then, in the case of some of them, you can't ask them for kisses when they only wanna be a friend to you and nothing more. I'm like the crow on post land. I'm like the crow on post door, crying evermore. When it comes to some relationships, it's like a crow crying evermore. You know what my heart beats for. You know the confusion that I deal with. You know the battles that I face, the difficulty that I face. Enunciating, I'm proclaiming that you are my fascination. When I deal with sleep deprivation, I just shake that dust off my shoulder. Shake that sleepy dust out of my eyes. When I enter that Sandman state of mind, you're so sweet, you're so kind. You died on the cross for the sake of my redemption. You made this world, you knew there's no pretension. I love to listen to podcasts on crosspolitics.com, Cross-Examined, Wrath and Grace, the Bar Podcast, that's biblical and reformed. It's not a podcast about drinking. No, some people who take part in that podcast network don't have a problem with drinking. I think it's okay as long as you don't do it to excess. If I do it to excess, it hampers my success. You're the cure to my stress. I've had homies to work for Forex, so I can't say that It's a bad thing to drink alcohol, 'cause I don't wanna lose friends. And I actually don't have a problem with alcohol as long as it's inheritance fruity red, 'cause that's my favorite. And I didn't get paid to say that. Nobody in their right mind would pay me to promote them, that's what I say. But I made $5 for promoting camping equipment for a month. I'm amazed that I lasted that long. They said to keep it family friendly and don't be controversial. I chose to ignore their rules and regulations, 'cause I find it impossible to be anything other than myself. I know I could have got further. I could have made more money if I'd have just shut my lips about certain topics, but I know who God called me to be. I didn't think after that debacle I'd make another friend in the NYC. I'd make another friend in NYC. Didn't think that you could ever use me for the sake of your glory. Didn't ever think I'd be a social media manager. Didn't ever think I'd be a promoter of an MC. Even though I'm no longer a promoter of an MC, I can still be a promoter of an MC in a way that I wasn't before. No longer promoting gigs, instead trying to get people to pay for the privilege of recording with GT Dine Music. That's DYNEMUSIQ. I use my IQ for the sake of your glory, your faithful and true. You were always devoted to me, even though I'm not always devoted to you. I'm promoting my difficulty that I face in this life. You are the one who helps to make the difference in my life in every single passing moment. Lord God, I'm grateful for your atonement. I battle on, I cadre, I soldier on. I know that you've got those skills to enable me to upskill. I'm gonna see you on Zion's hill, Lion of Zion. I hope I see everybody in the world up there too in heaven. That may not necessarily be the case unless you change your religion, if you believe in a false religion. Some people say that we should focus on having a relationship with God, not a religion, but the two are in a symbiotic relationship. It's impossible to have a relationship with God if you don't have a religion, if you don't have a belief system. I'm guided by you all the days of my existence. I don't care if it's hip to say things the way I say them. I'm still gonna be hip to the fact that I'm nothing without Jesus Christ residing in this heart of mine. Thanks to him, I don't have to sink down low like Poseidon. Thanks to him, I've got the will to carry on. Elohim, you reign supreme over all powers and principalities, over all my problems. You got the solution to all the pollution that's in my mind. I know I've digested garbage in the past. They say garbage in, garbage out. That doesn't just relate to what you fill your stomach with, but what you fill your spirit with. What you fill your spirit with, what you fill your spirit with is more important than what you fill your stomach with. Lord God, you help me to relax. I know you've always got my back. You help me when I'm under attack. You open my name, I'm open your name. I see you're calling me like Samuel. I've got to be about my Father's business. You're the cure to my stress. I express that difference that you make in my life. You keep my soul awake to my need for you in the ever-passing moment. Lord God, I'm grateful for your atonement. I can be at one with you, Father, Spirit, and Son. You are the one who is leading me and guiding me, even in my desert experience. Mama don't know why I'm screaming. It don't make no sense to her. She wonders if there's something she said or did that caused me to be this way. I've heard her weeping sometimes. I wish that I could wipe all her tears away, but only Jesus Christ can wipe all her tears away. I'm gonna love Jesus Christ until my dying day. My soul is crying out for his love. I'm so glad he chose to die for me, even though I wish there was another way for me to taste his freedom, for me to taste and see that he is good without him dying on the cross. I wish there was another way, but there was no other way. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus Christ said, Lord, if there's any other way, Take this cup of suffering away from me. Nevertheless, if it's your will, I will go through with it. He knew there was no other way. He was crying tears of blood. He was comforted by angels. The devil was probably trying to turn his heels around, trying to tell him that it's too hard. You should shove. Dying for the sake of the salvation of the whole world in a too hard basket. You're not going to be able to deal with all that pain and suffering that you're going to experience on the cross. But that wasn't true, because he is so powerful. He is able to endure suffering. He is able to endure the abandonment of his Father. So whenever we endure the abandonment of our Father, we never have to feel like we're walking through that road alone, because he is always with us. He never abandons us as orphans in this world. He never leaves us as widows in this world. He is a husband to the widows. He is a father to the fatherless. I'd rather be one day in his presence than 1,000 elsewhere. I'd rather be 1 second in his presence than 1,000 years elsewhere. He is the Lord of the millennium. He is the Lord of the century. He is the Lord of every single country. He is the Lord of the harvest. He is bringing out a harvest in every single generation, in every single soul. He is using every single soul for the sake of his glory. Every time anybody does something good, they are being used by him as his hands and feet. He makes my life complete. He is the source of my peace. He is the one that can't be impeded. He is the ingredient for change, the kind of change that this world needs instead of the kind of change that this world doesn't need. Not all change is good. He planted that faith seed in my heart. He is the fire that I can't keep shut up inside my bones. I lay my life down before his holy throne. Lord, you always sit on the throne of my heart, no matter who is president in 2020. You help me to see with 2020 vision. Elohim. Peace out.